Welcome to the Great Beer State podcast from the Michigan Brewers Guild. The Great Beer State is a weekly show sharing conversations and stories from the passionate people who contribute to our vibrant Michigan beer community. It is made up of a mix between full-length archived interviews from the Guild's first documentary book project, A Rising Tide, Stories from the Michigan Brewers Guild, and conversations recorded in the here and now. Each episode is kicked off with a conversational update from host Scott Graham, Executive Director of the Guild, and the beer-evangelist Fred Biltman, author of A Rising Tide. Here's Scott and Fred. Welcome to episode 29 of the Great Beer State podcast. My name is Fred, and I'm here with my good friend Scott Graham. We're talking Michigan beer, Michigan breweries, and the Michigan Brewers Guild. Scott, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. Fred, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I like our dueling pint glass backgrounds this week. That beer is looking mighty attractive right now, and looking forward to kicking off the conversation we had for this week's episode. It's with our longtime friend and collaborator, Isaac Hartman, who's been at New Holland Brewing for more than 20 years and is current president of the board of directors for the Michigan Brewers Guild. So we'll get to that in just a second, but love to hand it off to you to start out with some updates.
Well, I sound a little bit like a broken record, but I guess a new current affair is, in the ongoing challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on people's ability to run their lives like they are used to. We've been in, it's fall. We've seen a pretty dramatic uptick in cases, and there's a lot of concern over that, to be sure. We were on a shutdown to indoor dining again after we had that in the spring, and then we're operating at reduced capacity for indoor dining for quite a number of months, and then went back to takeout only, which is manageable for some and not worthwhile for others. And there was a lot of concern and kind of hand-wringing and watching what was going to be happen with that set to expire literally today, the day we're recording this. And it was extended for another 12 days to see how things are going, which would take us to December 20th. So it's hard. It's hard for our brewery members in their tasting rooms. It's hard for all of our friends and other folks that we don't know in the retail area as far as restaurants and bars go. It's pretty devastating as a whole. I certainly understand it and don't have an easy answer. I will say I'm thankful that I am not in the shoes of the governor or the director of Health and Human Services. I think they've got very hard jobs to do, and more than likely they're going to, regardless of what they do, they're going to have somebody feeling put out and genuinely hurt by their actions, and I think they're sincerely trying to do the best.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation all around, and scary, no matter which way you slice it. And I think the 20th is I'm sort of apprehensive about the debate that'll happen approaching the 20th because it's right before Christmas, and if vaccine's not out, they're going to be discouraging. They're already discouraging travel for Christmas, which makes sense from a virus containment point of view. But debating indoor dining right before that holiday that people aren't supposed to travel for is going to be an unpleasant conversation, to say the least, unless something changes, which we're all hoping for.
Yep, and I think we're going to turn the corner. I'm really glad that the vaccine seems to be coming. Probably one of the upsides of the increased cases there will be some more inherent resistance to the disease because so many people have gotten it. That'll tend to help. I just hope in the coming months we see those things help. The governor had a press conference to discuss this. And like you mentioned, she's discouraging multiple families to get together for Christmas, which is hard to think about, but I think it's important to think about. I know I'm thinking about how to approach my family and getting together, which is a time when we normally look forward to that. And there are lots and lots of other people. Most everybody's in that boat. So it's tough personally and emotionally for lots of people. Yeah, as we wrap up 2020, I think everybody will be raising a glass of Michigan beer and saying that really sucked.
How about the year? Because the beer was
The year,
fantastic.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a silver lining in many ways to things that are going on. I think it, I've talked to some people who said, hey, we were broke. We might have been doing okay before this, but we were broke for a long time, and we know how to be on a shoestring or a bootstrap, and this forces us to buckle down and really get good at that again, which is will wind up being a beneficial exercise. I don't think anybody's saying, I really think in hindsight this is going to be great, but there you can find the silver lining if you
Oh,
start thinking about it, and I hope some people are able to.
well, the craft beer community is no stranger to adversity. So if you make it through, then at some point you'll be able to stand on that as a testament to what you're capable of. If it closes, the brewery, if it closes doors and sends somebody out of the industry, that's a different thing. And we're hoping for more of the former of tales of resilience and success despite the adversity. And I mean, it's just bizarre too. I keep coming back to it. It's like I'm really grateful for what we've been able to do with this program and talking to one another, sharing these weekly updates and interviews with you and with membership and with the world. But it is very surreal to realize that we've been getting together for 6 months and we're talking about shutdowns and whether there's a vaccine for the deadly virus that's sweeping the nation. I mean, it's just so dramatic and it's become our normal this year. But when you look at it in that perspective, it is still so bizarre to wrap your head around, especially because our stories, when you listen to these interviews, whether they're from the here and now or whether they're from the archive, the stories are testaments to the power of coming together. About breweries are about bringing people together, whether that's people in the company or people in the community that are joining the tavern, the brew pub, the tasting room. These are places for coming together, and so it's that more heart wrenching because that's what's been taken away for the time being by this situation, is that our ability to come together is arrested and disrupted, and it's an emotional gap that we're feeling the loss of, I guess. It's my COVID soapbox for the day.
Yeah, well, here, I agree with that, and Michigan beer and getting together over any beer is certainly about socially being together, and all this talk about social distance and not being together is very contrary to the spirit of what we love so much about the beer community. So it's hard. I feel for the whole community.
Yeah. So our best wishes for everybody to carry on and do your best, and we will be together again. Now seems like a good time to get past the gloom and doom and give our weekly shout out with the Brewers Dozen, 13 brewers from our membership. Today brings us to the Lansing area. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, let's start right downtown Lansing at Lansing Brewing Company.
And still downtown, I believe we have Ozone's Brew House.
Yeah, Ozone's is a little bit north of downtown, but I'd call them in the downtown area. And if we radiate out a little bit west and south, but still a Lansing address, is Eagle Monk Pub and Brewery.
And then heading over to East Lansing, we got Harper's Restaurant and Brew Pub.
Yeah, Harper's been a a member for many years. They date back to the early days, so nice to be thinking about them. Ellison Brewery and Spirits is also in the East Lansing area. Cool brewery.
And we've got Jolly Pumpkin Cafe and Brewery.
Yeah, so this is the newest in the Jolly Pumpkin lineup. They just opened recently in East Lansing. If we travel from Lansing, East Lansing, just a little bit west to Grand Ledge, you can go enjoy beer and actually spirits and wine at Sanctuary, which is our old pal Carl Glarner.
Oh, yeah. Carl's been a supporter for long before he got into the actual commercial brewing game. Brickhaven Brewing Company is also in Grand Ledge.
Yes, and also on the outskirts of the Lansing area is Dimondale, and there is Dimes Brew House.
And Charlotte is nearby, a little outside of town, and we have Charlotte Brewing Company.
Yes, Brew Pub in Charlotte. Also kind of south of town, you'll find the town of Mason, and there you can go get a tasty beer for takeout at Bad Brewing Company.
And then our friend Travis is over at Williamston with Old Nation Brewing Company.
Yep, rotating around a little to the north to DeWitt, Looking Glass Brewing Company.
And wrapping up the Brewers Dozen, we have in Portland, we have Conflux City Brewing Company. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I'm sure you'll clean it up for me.
Yeah, Conflux City, kind of a husband and wife operation. I don't know if it's an old house or what it is, but it's a warm, friendly microbrewery. So yeah, it's if anybody's counting, the Brewers Dozen for this episode was 14 different locations. So I encourage you to get out and try them all.
We got a bonus brewery. Well, speaking of warm and friendly, that brings us to Isaac Hartman. If you've been around the Guild for a while, I think you know Isaac. We did interview him for Rising Tide, so he has a quote there. But since he has, moved on up and become the president of the Guild, I thought it'd be good to get a fresh take from him in the here and now. So we just talked to him, and of course, I go way back with them, and so do you. So I'm not very objective, but it was great to hear his point of view. I love his story. I love the enthusiasm he lends, and another example of you don't have to be a brewery owner and an entrepreneur to contribute a lot to this community and to be a significant part of the pulse, which he has been.
Yeah, Isaac has contributed a lot, and he's done it because he feels good about it and feels like he's giving to something, and has never asked for anything in return. And I remember when I first met Isaac, it was in the office of a distributor warehouse, and he was, young, messy-haired guy. I'll say I was going to call him a kid, and that's just not the way it is. And I don't want to feel like an old geezer or something either. But we've, grown to not only, work together, but we've become genuine friends. We've been friends for a long time now. And to see Isaac, I've certainly seen him mature in some ways, and really respect him and respect his opinions, and enjoy working with him on the board of directors of the Brewers Guild and having him as a leader in the president's role. He's contributing in his own way and contributing significantly. So it was fun to listen to his interview and learn a few more things about his background. And of course, I get his perspective, but there's some great tidbits in there.
Yeah, I think that I've said it already, but his enthusiasm and his sort of willingness to stay in there and figure things out has been really a testament his whole career, I think, has been it's been a pleasure to watch him learn and to watch him engage and develop. And he's just one of those people in the community you can trust, and you feel good when he's around. So
yeah, very true. We're lucky to have him.
So with that, we can wax on the many ways we love Isaac, but I think it'd be better to just hand everybody off to Isaac. Here he is via Zoom. Recently, Isaac Hartman, New Holland Brewing Company, president of the Michigan Brewers Guild. Take it away, Isaac.
Cheers, Isaac.
Welcome to the Great Beer State podcast, Isaac. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Even better that you're here. Haven't seen you in a while. It's great to catch up. So, Isaac, you and I have worked together a long time, both in the Guild and at New Holland. And so while I'm familiar with the story, I'd love to get started and just share with people how you came into the world of beer, the world of Michigan brewing. Where did the story of Isaac and Michigan beer first intersect?
Oh boy, that's a long one. Well, I'll give you the brief version, Fred. I was a college student at Hope College back in 1998 to 2002, and I was at RA of a residence hall, and some of my residents were bottling beer at this little small brewery called New Holland Brewing. Well, they would go off and help Brett Vanderkamp and Jason Spalding bottle beer, and I would go with them oftentimes and help out. And then about a year later, I went to Vienna College Hope summer school program and really tried some different beers in Vienna, Austria, and Germany. Came back there, started the fall semester. I just turned 21, and I saw a sign on the door that said dishwasher wanted. I went in and applied for the job because I used to wash dishes at a restaurant in Grand Rapids called Pietro's, which one of them is still around today. And I got hired as a dishwasher. So from there, I worked in the kitchen for about a year and a half. I was around 2001. And then, at about 2002 to 2003, when I graduated college, I really was passionate about beer, and there was no one really selling beer for New Holland. And so I guess talked to Jason Spalding at the time about being the first salesperson, and that's what happened. There I became one of two. Adam LeClaire, who's no longer with us, was a salesperson as well, and
no longer with the brewery. He's still alive and kicking.
Yes, Adam is alive and kicking. He's like an ultra marathoner. Guy has got really high endurance and is running all over the place. But yes, Adam is still alive and kicking and doing well. And then from there, we just started selling beer. And we had one distributor, maybe two at the time. It was a Modern Beverage in Holland, in Ottawa County, and Kent Beverage in Grand Rapids. And there's Rave Associates too in Ann Arbor. So those were the three, and we were selling beer, and eventually more came on board. And then I think you came along to New Holland in 2003, if I remember?
2004.
So just after that. Yeah. And then from there, I've been selling beer and spirits for New Holland since then. I've had a few job changes over the years, but all relatively in the sales arm of the organization. And it's been a wonderful experience for me. And it's rare that people stick around with a company for so long, but it just fits my lifestyle, fits my family. It fits what I love to do. And I love being a part of the community. And, the Brewers Guild as well has been a huge impact in part of my life, which has been great because the way for me to serve is connected to my job too, where a lot of I think people have trouble serving outside of their their job organization because of time commitments, but there's a lot of crossover and mesh between the Guild and New Holland that it was just kind of a perfect marriage for me. And so I've been serving with the Guild for a long time too, and it's been fantastic. So that's the short end of it.
That's great. So if we go back a little bit, can you tell me sort of when your worldview saw the larger Michigan brewing community beyond New Holland while you're at Hope? So like pre-Guild, and when did you start to realize there was a larger beer scene happening in Michigan?
Well, I knew of the players, right? So at that time, we had some small breweries. Robert Thomas, Rafi, Founders was going in the old building they were in, and not Atwater, excuse me. Well, Atwater was around at that time. Arcadia and Dark Horse was going too. So I knew of the breweries that were there, but I think what really when the light bulb clicked on for me was seeing how much market share the big brewers had, how hard it was for Bell's to get the success that they had. And it really dawned on me the story of the underdog, where it's like, hey, there's all these beers out there that I was never exposed to, that I got my exposure in Europe. And I was like, well, there's all this diversity here in Michigan. Like, why can't we grow that? So it was around, probably to answer your question specifically, 2003, when I went to my first Brewers Guild Festival as part of the crew and actually poured beer at the table as part of the setup crew, that I really realized, like, hey, there's such a thing happening out there that's bigger than me. And I did have a little bit of exposure to craft beer before I went to Europe for the summer school program, because I actually turned 21 in January. And that was my year. I took about a half semester off of college and spent some time in Denver. So with my brothers that lived out there, and their scene was further down the way than we were. So I got exposed to Odell Brewing, Breckenridge Brewing, and some of the smaller brew pubs out there. And I was like, came back to Michigan with a whole new perspective after I went away, took that semester off. So
cool.
Really dawned upon me that, hey, there's so much more out there, and why can't we just support Michigan? And I was an athlete in high school, so I'm a pretty competitive guy. And when the opportunity for me to be in the sales role was out there for New Holland, I took it kind of as my mission to go out there and try to promote New Holland and sell New Holland beer, but also give other breweries a chance to promote the category. So it's been a really wonderful experience.
Great. Yeah, I was just going to ask about that sort of, a lot of these story type conversations, we talk about the entrepreneurs that started the business, and we talk to the brewers who are creating new beers, and your path is different. And I just wanted to maybe open that up and say, I think you just started talking about it, but what was your choice influenced by, in terms of, hey, I'm in this company and I want to be part of selling this beer, bringing it to the people versus making it? What did that decision or instinct look like? And then maybe you can just speak to some of the skill sets, some of the things that you learned, that you were learning as part of that developed role, that's different than if you were to try and become a brewer.
Well, I think for the most obvious reason for me is I was a pretty social guy in college, and wasn't afraid to meet new people and go out of my comfort zone a little bit. And I remember working in the kitchen at New Holland in 2002 that I told Brett and Jason I wanted to organize a Halloween party, and I thought it would be a good idea. So we threw a costume Halloween party at the brewery, and that took off. It was really successful. We did that for a while. but I think, as far as the skill set that I learned, I think, I'm pretty social, and to be by myself in a brewery working with a team of people would be a little hard for me, because I like the interaction with the public, and I like the challenge of trying to solve problems, particularly with retailers that have issues or have needs that need to be met. But I wouldn't say that my skill set math is strong. I mean, I am pretty good at math, but it's not something that I love to do. I've had to learn how to be better at math. But the technical side of brewing, the science part of brewing, the ingredients that go into the extreme attention to detail that you need, is just something that I don't want to say I don't have the patience for. It's just not something that I really, really enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the chase, being around people, the camaraderie, the excitement you get when you have success, and also the pain that follows sometimes when you don't have success. And it's not easy being in the sales world, being on the road all the time. It does have some other challenges. You tend to work a lot, and you tend to be a home away from your families. I was lucky enough that in my 20s, my 20s and my early 30s, I didn't have a family. So it was adventurous and exciting for me to hit the road for a while, where I didn't have responsibilities at home. And now that's kind of changed a little bit. But I think you really have to have a kind of a go-getter type attitude, when you're selling any product, but in particularly with beer, it's hard. And it was a lot harder, I think, than it is now, because the market wasn't there. It just didn't exist the way it does now.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about that shift? So I'm just putting myself back there in the time machine and thinking you're a young man finishing up school, maybe just out of school. You start in the dish pit, and then you get this more significant job, but for a pretty small company, and you're selling beer. My guess is that wasn't on your top 3 things you thought you'd be doing when you did your career class in high school. So when did it start to look different than a job, and when did it start to look like a career? And how did your own awareness of that sort of shift with you and your family?
Well, I think it became a career for me when I actually attended the first Brewers Guild conference as a part of the New Holland crew, because I saw actually there were actual professionals here that this is a viable career. I never thought that you could be a brewer or be a sales manager or be a sales rep or be an event manager for a brewery. The industry kind of just, as the growth of the breweries happened, there are more opportunities out there. And that was a big experience for me, because it was unlike any traditional, I think, job, at least the sales and marketing behind the beers, than I think it was ever exposed to in my life. I've heard of manufacturers and builders and tradespeople and doctors and lawyers and all those things that you know about, but to be in the beverage world, and particularly beer, and have a career that could support a family was just fantastic for me to be able to have that opportunity. So,
yeah. And as you discovered that, what did it pull you from? Where were you headed prior to discovering the secret world of beer and breweries?
Well, I wanted to be a teacher, of all things, a history and social studies teacher for high school, because I love history and I love social studies and culture. And I didn't have the best experience as a high school teacher, and in my student teaching. And I will say, take a pause for a minute to say that for all the teachers and educators out there, you guys have a tireless, thankless job. They don't get enough love and support. So I'm going to sidebar and say, I appreciate you. And there's a lot of people that do too. So I'm going to raise my glass and say cheers. Take a little
There you
break
go.
for you.
Cheers.
Especially now with everything going on. But I wanted to be a teacher because I felt like if I could inspire a kid, a high schooler that didn't know what they wanted to do with their life, to go out there and do what they wanted to do and make a positive impact in the world, then that would bring me fulfillment. And that would bring me some kind of purpose, as opposed to just, I'm a teacher, I'm going to collect my paycheck and go home. And there's a lot of similarities between education as a teacher, but also education, in the beer world, because we had to educate a lot of retailers about what craft beer is, what Michigan beer is, how it's different than the mass produced beers, and why it's of value, and all the education behind it is an educational thing. And there's also a connection to the guild, because the guild board members and employees, board members and volunteers are all taking their time non-paid to do this. So there's an education process there, and there's a service community aspect to that as well, where it's like, for me, this is my way to give back and try to help make a positive impact for people, smaller breweries, and other folks that may need that. And it fit kind of my fabric, if you will, as a person. I've always wanted to be involved with some kind of nonprofit work outside of New Holland, and I'm just blessed to have the guild to be able to serve in any way that I can. And I started serving the guild, just by volunteering in the early days with festival help, and then I realized the importance of being involved with the guild and how it is important to the organization to try to help continue its mission.
Awesome. So maybe a little more about that. Like, so the guild was an early influence because of the festival, and that's when you kind of saw the industry and saw your role both as New Holland, the brewery, but as Isaac, the person at New Holland. You saw your role connect to this larger community. How did that develop? Like, when did you learn more about the inner workings of guild and or just the community of Michigan brewers together? As your role developed and as you became sort of deeper in, how did those relationships grow, and what did you see about the guild that made you? I appreciate what you just said about serving, and I'm just wondering what that progression looked like and how you got into where you are.
Well, again, I'll go back to the first festival. I remember being in the back of a truck, one of those box trucks that back in those days, we didn't have a trailer where all of our stuff is. It was all hands on deck. So the board and volunteers would do all of the heavy lifting of those events. And I think it's important for listeners to know that the festival now, as opposed to back then, was very different, because the board and the breweries did the major parts of the heavy lifting. I'm talking physical labor, putting up the physical tent, pounding in the stakes, doing all the work with the table, delivering the kegs of beer everywhere. I mean, it was really a community-based thing. And I'm sitting in the back of this box truck, helping Scott King and Pat Scanlon, who are two early board members and part of the founding organization, putting up fencing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, here's a group of people that it doesn't matter where you come from, what you even believe, what you look like, you can be yourself and you can be a part of this community. And I saw everybody working together. Like, they're all working together for the greater good to promote their businesses, but also the category. And I'm thinking, like, this is something that I can be a part of and I can be myself with. And so that was the summer festival in probably 2002, 3. And then I went to a conference in Detroit. An annual conference was at the Sheraton Hotel downtown, and it was small then too. And I just had a lot of great conversations with some of the founding people that were there from the beginning. Tim Surprise from Arcadia, John Lenardos from Motor City, Pat Scanlon, Mike Plez, Drew Ciora, these folks that were there, Fred and Brett from New Holland, Jason Spalding. I mean, I got to know these people a little bit, and then a few of those people encouraged me to say, hey, maybe you should get involved more on a larger level. Get involved with the guild, because board members typically only serve for a certain amount of period of time. Some people stay on longer, and I remember you encouraging me to run for a board seat. Brett did, and some other folks, and said, hey, we're going to need a new crop of people to help be involved. And so I thought about it for a while, and I don't even remember, I should know this, but I remember maybe 10 years ago, it could be 12 years ago, where I was nominated to be a board member, and I ended up getting elected and serving as an at-large member. And so I think that is where really things started to cook for me. And I have a different perspective than probably a lot of people that have been on the podcast or past presidents or board members, in that I'm one of a few people that have been a board member that isn't a founder of a brewery, that isn't the owner of the brewery. And it's allowed me to, I think, serve in a way that benefits members, because I don't have the day-to-day weight and responsibility, especially now during COVID, to figure out how to keep my doors open and to keep my own business together. I have been able to support the industry as a result of the support of our ownership and leadership team at New Holland, to say, you know what, it's good that our people serve the better good of the industry. And I say that because it's really helped me. Serving in the guild as I've learned a lot of skills that have helped me bring back to New Holland, but it's also, I think, helped me develop into a better person and to better learn how to deal with people and how to solve problems and work collectively with the group. And I know that it's going to leave the guild off in a better place, and I'm happy to do that. So it's been really rewarding for me personally.
That's great. And so after, and I've been a big fan and supporter watching you grow into those roles. And so recently you went from a board member at large to being appointed as the president of the board. So congratulations on that. And maybe talk a little bit about, did your perspective or your view change? And, I guess either talking about that role or talking about, I'd like to ask, what do you think more people should know about either what it's like to serve on the board or how they could interact with the board? It's a bunch of questions in one, but you can pick and choose from it what you'd like to share.
I think there's a difference, certainly, between being a board member and the president over the organizations, for sure, because I think a board member has certain duties, and I think the president has a lot more other duties. And I've learned that it's a lot of a lot more time and energy and commitment and inner workings when you are a president that go on behind the scenes that I don't think you never knew as a board member, which is totally okay. But it's just different. There's a lot more responsibility. There's a lot more work that's involved, and I unfortunately had a lot of help with past presidents that did a lot of work to set us up for where we are right now from an organizational standpoint. But it's just a different seat there, and you have to make some decisions that are challenging, especially right now with COVID, where we face challenges like the rest of the members do. But I think it's where am I trying to go here? I need to have a beer.
There you go. Well, I was just going to say, so you've got the general transition of shifting between roles and taking on those new responsibilities, understanding what they are, understanding how to serve in that capacity, and there's a certain amount of decision tree and like ultimate responsibility the president has that the other board members don't. And then you get handed a pandemic and have 4 festivals canceled, the primary revenue source. I mean, I can't imagine. I guess I can only imagine what it's been like this year that had to. So I guess in broad strokes, I know there's just too many details to go through, but I mean, in broad strokes, what has working with the board and leading the board and coordinating with Scott, what does that look like this year in this crazy time of having this massive obstacle and shift put in front of you?
Well, we've learned to take it day by day and work together to make decisions the best we can to help our members survive the pandemic. We worked really hard at getting information out to them when things change. There's a lot of changes that goes on in terms of regulations, governor's orders or health department orders or whatever those things are. Here's how you apply for a grant, or here's how help with unemployment, or whatever that looks like. We've tried really hard to make the right decision and serve the members. And we've also understand that we want to navigate this to try to keep it going so that 10 years from now, there's a Michigan Brewers Guild. That's really ultimately our goal in a nutshell, is that years down the road, we want to have a strong Brewers Guild, because the legacy that I think I don't want to speak for the entire board, but I'm going to, and they will agree with me, is that our legacy is to keep it going like the legacy behind us did, or in front of us, excuse me. So past presidents and past boards have tried to make decisions to keep the thing going, and we're going to try to do the same thing too. It's been very difficult. As you said, we've been forced to not have festivals, which is a big revenue generator for us. We are going to try to continue to do what we can to keep the boat afloat, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I've definitely, as a past member and also a supporter, and just, watching with a little bit of an informed perspective, it's a pretty huge testament to the strength of work that group of people has done, that the organization has survived wiping out revenue and is still here and still moving forward and still investing in the future. I think that's pretty remarkable. And just we couldn't have ever imagined this challenge And we're preparing for a virtual conference here in January. So there'll be continued education opportunities, and that's kind of one of the most engaging things probably for guild members in the past 8 months. So there's now an opportunity to come together and really do something together.
Yeah, there is. And I think that's what's been severely missed. I think one of the real things that have been really hard on our members is, how do we be collegial in a pandemic? How do we associate when we can't physically associate? It's been really so, I think, mentally draining on everybody, combined with, we can't be around our families. We can't go and do certain things because of this. From a safety standpoint, but I think that'll be energizing for us to get together and talk and learn, and hopeful that we can continue to do that and get back to some sort of meeting in person and festivals in person at some time. There's just a lot of unknowns with that, and we're trying to, again, make the decisions that are going to be best for the future. But I will say just briefly, there were a number of boards in the previous years that made the right decision to save some money for a rainy day. And without those hard decisions and those decisions to do that, the guild probably would not exist today, at least as what it is. So, Eric Briggerman, if you're listening, or if you hear this during your leadership, Scott Newman Bale, your leadership too, the rest of the board that was around those past years, thank you for making the right decision to save some pennies for a rainy day, because we are not in a rainy day. We're more like in a, I don't know, pandemic. I don't know what. Yeah, it's just like a
rainy, the year of rain,
never-ending storms. And I'm going on a tangent here, but it's not only like we can't meet, but there's so many challenges that we have. If it's a cans shortage, if it's not being able to be open, if it's, the pandemic. I mean, it's just like all these things really coming together has been really hard, and we're gonna fight to keep it going.
Yeah. So I want to pivot. I want to start the last call questions, a series of questions we ask everybody, but I think this first one will be an opportunity to kind of pivot to your New Holland life too, because you do have, an interesting perspective, both being around for a long time and being on the sales effort and the sales side of things. So the question is sort of about the pandemic and how has it and all the related regulations affected both your industry outlook and your perspective looking forward. And I think we've heard that in terms of the guild. So I'd love to hear it from your role at New Holland and your role as being on the sales side of things. What has that looked like through the pandemic, and how do you look forward?
Well, early on, we at New Holland, we had the opportunity to innovate a little bit, and we ended up making hand sanitizer, which there was a huge demand for it right from the get-go. The government made it easier for us to from a regulation standpoint, to make sanitizer. So we did, and that helped us, and it helped a lot of nonprofits and people that couldn't get it. We donated quite a bit and had some available out there. So that's what we did to innovate and help us keep us going. I mean, we're pretty unique in that we have beer, spirits, and then we sell canned cocktails too, which is a mixed drink in a cocktail. So we had some different revenue streams coming in that helped us. Looking forward here, we're from a standpoint, try and just do the best that we can, like any other brewery. I think our size is watching our revenues and really working hard to make the right decision when we're out selling beer or marketing or promoting our beers. And we don't know what challenges we're going to be faced with down the road, but we've been blessed to be able to be a brewery for let's see here, I'm doing the math, 23 years. 22 or 23 years.
You still got it. It just takes a minute.
Yeah. So we've been fortunate to be able to be still distributing where some of our members can't, or don't have the ability to. So, we've been able to hang in there. Gosh,
I mean, that's got to be a whole new world too, just connecting to retailers and whether are they there, are they open, are they taking in-person meetings, is it on the phone or email, like adapting to a buyer's sort of, protocols is a challenge before a pandemic. That just has to have been difficult for the whole team to figure out.
Yeah.
How do we reach them and what do we talk about them? Like, I don't know. It's just crisis makes things pretty difficult and can also be bonding, I imagine.
Yeah, it is. I feel this urge where it's like, man, I just want to go see a buyer and shake their hand, say thank you, or here's a sample, or let's talk. I mean, you miss that personal connection and interaction with people. And that's been the hardest. But there has been some positives with the virtual meetings. Is that you tend to can get more focus, and it's a nice way to deliver a message. But there's something about human connection that is magical when you're dealing with the buyer. But going out and being able to, I think, sample the consumers, which is something that breweries traditionally, that's a way for us to get our beer out there, is interact with the consumer and sample and have them try that. It's been really, really difficult because of restaurants being under restriction. People can't try new things, but also in-store tastings have been canceled. And who knows when they're going to be able to come back. So recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, it was illegal for a brewery to do an in-store tasting at a store. And so the Brewers Guild did a lot of work to get those laws changed, worked with our parties to do that so I could stand in a store and do a tasting. Well, they'll do those anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really challenging for breweries to get their beer into consumers' mouths because their avenue that we had to sample, and now it's no longer permitted. And even if there is when there's a vaccine and when things are, quote, normal, who knows stores are going to allow those again. So challenge too. Got to figure out how to continue to get beer to people's lips. Have them try it.
Right on. So the next question is, the more you know, what beer style do you feel most connected to, and what do you wish more people knew about it?
This is a tough question. The older I get, the more I'm connected, I would say, to Pilsners and light lagers, because I've drank the gamut in my almost 20 years here at New Holland. But, I think what I drink a lot of are the Pilsners, but I think what I'm most connected to probably are the stouts and the darker beers now. I've lost my love for IPAs because they tend to give me heartburn in my older age. I don't know why that is, but they just do. And more of the maltier styles are really more connecting to me. But oatmeal stout, and I would say on the other end, light lagers and pilsners, because I still do like the good hop character. I just don't like a whole bunch of it anymore.
Right on. So your ideal home bar, want to talk about either what your home bar setup is or any suggestions you have for people who are likely serving and enjoying more beer at home. What are the tips and tricks for a good home bar?
Well, I think shelving, you got to have some good shelves where you can fit multiple styles of glassware. Never thought this was a big deal until I actually drank a beer in the style that it actually was meant to be served in. And that's kind of been a holiday tradition for me, is that, about 8 years ago, I went to Siciliano's Market in Grand Rapids and bought just a bunch of Belgian Christmas German beers. And then, cracked them open with the family and friends that were over or whatever. And I was like, they actually have a picture of what glassware suits the style of beer. And I thought to myself, well, shoot, I got to get some of these different kinds of glasses. And so the following year, I went out and got some tulip glasses and goblets and different glasses, and actually kind of partaking in that little family tradition there. And so, yeah, to answer your question, home bar, you got to have proper glassware.
Glassware and shelves to put it on.
Shelves to put it on, and beer clean glasses. We got to make sure they're beer clean and warm temperature. So you have a nice beer clean glass like this. I don't know if you can see that. You can see the beer clean.
Yeah.
glass.
So what's your trick to keeping beer clean glasses at home?
Try to dust your shelves on a regular basis, and wash them and hand dry them.
There you go.
Air dry them if you want to. I hand wash. I don't put them in the dishwasher because it tends to ruin the nice labels on there. And then if you want to get core, you can have a beer fridge. For me, I have a separate beer fridge garage. It goes in the other fridge. And you always got to have a good glass of Michigan-made bourbon in your home bar too. So
there you go. Love and hate. What current trends do you love or do you hate, and how are they reflected or not in your brewery?
Gosh, I guess
let it rip.
I personally, now this is just me, I'm not a big fan of all the crazy wild fruit flavored beers that have all sorts of exotic, crazy ingredients in them. We will probably make a couple next year. That's okay. They're just not my thing. But I think that comes from my background of going to Germany and having traditional styles, being more of a traditionalist.
Yeah.
I don't think that people, I think it's okay for people to innovate and do different things because we have to, right? Just for me, per se, not necessarily a fan of fruity, crazy ingredients in beer.
So you love the classics.
I like the classics. Yeah.
All right. You remember your first drink?
Yes. My first legal was a fat tire at a little pub called the Tugboat in Steamboat, Colorado. I was on a Hope College ski trip, and I feel really bad about this story, but I have to share it. My friend was the driver to us that was taking us to a safe driver, taking us to the place. And we had a couple beers, and the safe driver had one too many and got pulled over on the way home. All because they were taking me to celebrate my 21st birthday. So I feel kind of bad about that. It was kind of a bummer on my 21st birthday, but that was my legal first beer, was a Fat Tire Amber Ale.
There you go. So how about your worst drink?
My worst drink is probably Malort.
All right. So
it's just the worst thing ever on the planet. There's not much more I can say about that, but then it's just awful.
All right. Tastes like home to me. nostalgia, but I'm not here to debate. So story time. What's one of your go-to funny stories you find yourself sharing about your time in the world of Michigan beer and the people that make up Michigan beer?
Oh, this is going to be hard.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. But, Pat Scanlon started a new tradition. He shared the story of the wedding party, after party at the Marriott's. And now I realized that we've got to invite people to share these hysterical stories of their time in Michigan beer.
Okay, I'm searching right now as I'm talking to you here. Well, I got a good one. Got a great one, actually. So there's this, before we started the UP beer market, I was a person up there and I sell beer up to the peninsula. And at the time was called Ward Beverage. They're really small wine. They had Bell's in New Holland. But there was this little bar right on Presque Isle Road, which is right kind of outside of town near the stadium. And it was purple bar called Nickel. And I said to my distributor, I says, hey, do you ever go into this place and try to sell them beer? And they says, no. They kind of looked at me like, the way would we go there? That place is peanuts on the floor and it's a rough crowd and it's not a Michigan beer place. Don't want to go there. Well, gosh, I don't remember exactly how I went there, but I want to say it was from Mike Stucco, who owns Stucco's Pub, who is a roommate of Phil Thompson, now owner of Big Heart Brewery. Hi, Phil. And Phil introduced us to Stucco. Said, hey, you got to sell beer to Mike Stucco. So I said, okay. We went up selling beer. So Mike says, I played darts at this place called Wood Nickel. Their bar manager, Kellyanne, is really awesome. You need to go try to talk to her. So I went in there, tried to talk to her, and I think said, hey, we're this brewery. You think you maybe could sell craft beer here? Had some conversation, and I remember you meeting me in the bar, and we had some food from across the street. There's a Thai restaurant, Thai rice patty, I think it's called. And we ordered food in, and I said, hey, I think, Fred, this is going to be a good spot. We're going to sell them some beer. So we had some back and forth interaction with the buyer and the owner, and he gave us some hard time, and it was totally up our alley. Well, the long story short, the following beer festival, we decided to throw an after party there. And it was a great party. They had a great band. I think I remember grabbing the microphone and singing a few songs with the band, and maybe standing on top of the bar singing the Michigan Beer Fight song. But I think the wonderful thing about that place is that was a little what we call a diamond in the rough out there.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan beer. It was not a place known for Michigan beer, but we went there and they support Michigan beer like crazy right now. And it's that's part of the sales experience and the stories that really are rewarding, is that you can make something, not make something, but really affect change and get your beers out there. And it was a gathering spot for us. It still is today. And a lot of fond memories are shared there.
Wooden Nickel.
Good old Wooden Nickel.
And beautiful Marquette. Here's to them. All right. So last up, final question. Who is the bucket list drinking companion? Somebody you haven't had a beer with, but that you'd love to, alive or dead?
Oh, this is such a hard question, Fred. Man. I don't know. There's so many good historical figures that I would love to have a beer with. I think probably Winston Churchill. And the reason for that is 2 reasons. One, be able to ask him about how to make decisions in a crazy time that he had to lead the British people through the Battle of Britain, through Dunkirk, the evacuation of Dunkirk off of France, all of that World War II stuff, and dealing with the inner workings of the government, wartime, the military, like all of that. I think he would be a wonderful person to have a beer with or two. And the second reason is just to ask him how in the world he pressed on and gave the people hope during a near hopeless situation that they were faced. Before the United States entered the war on the Western Front, how they seemed to be just getting bombed and bombed and bombed, and there was zero hope in that whole situation. But somehow he was able to get them through that to carry on another day.
Awesome words of wisdom, Winston. Isaac's ready for a beer. You're gonna have to,
Someday.
saddle up somehow for a collegial beverage with some advice and mentorship. So, Isaac, I just want to thank you for everything you've given and contributed to the Michigan brewing community. You're one in a million, and I'm grateful to have worked with you all these years. And I'm proud of everything you've done for the community. So keep up the great work, bringing beautiful beer into the world and helping the organization move forward.
Thank you very much. Love being a part of it. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks for listening and sharing while supporting Michigan breweries and craft beer everywhere. The Michigan Brewers Guild was formed in 1997 with its first summer beer festival taking place in July of 1998. Its now 5 annual festivals are dedicated exclusively to Michigan beer brewed by more than 270 member breweries. The Michigan Brewers Guild exists to promote and protect the passionate Michigan beer industry in every way possible. To learn more, visit us at mibeer.com or say hello on one of our social media pages, as we love hearing from you. From coast to coast, from far and near, let's drink Michigan beer.